Hello and welcome to Gameweek 31 of the Premium FPL podcast. If you're not following us already, please do at premium_FPL on Twitter. We are now in the running, as I say, Gameweek 31, 8 game weeks to go, 8 big game weeks to go. And it feels like every man and his dog who's still got the wildcard left is now playing that chip this week. So we're going to talk through that. We're going to dedicate that special. One man who's very much undecided whether to play the chip is Mr. Meninda himself.
Yeah, I probably will. I've just not activated yet. I'm not a money chaser like you. I don't chase every 0.1 like it's the last bit of currency in the world. Yeah, just to reiterate Callum's plea, to give us a follow. I'm surprised Callum could remember the handle. I've not seen you on Twitter this week on the FPL scene. Any reason why you've been quiet?
Probably the bench boost was a bit of a kick in the teeth. I think I got 4 points on my bench boost, so I kind of spent all week getting over that. I mean, I'm still lingering about the 5K mark, which is something that you'd probably take, wouldn't you? So I should probably just wait. Say it's a chip that didn't go to plan, but very much a strong season still.
That Chelsea, it was kind of the Chelsea game that's ruined half your bench boost, wasn't it? That Chelsea West Brom game was just ridiculous.
Yeah, and then everyone got dropped who played internationals, which everyone predicted would happen. So it probably was a bit of a silly time, but we're going to talk about Wildcard, and I'm going to less value in the bench. So I think I just had to get rid of it, really, to be honest.
But like, while we're on that Chelsea West Brom thing, do you reckon Chelsea will just go back to normal though? Like that? Do you think it was just an aberration with the red card? It's not like they've fallen off a cliff.
Yeah, I mean, at 1-0 and 11 men, Chelsea they just look like they're controlling things. And then I think that red card just completely shocked the whole team. And what happened next, everyone knew it was bizarre, really. We're recording the podcast Wednesday just before the Champions League game, so we won't know if there's going to be a bit of reaction tonight, but I'm sure Rudiger and Kepa will be fired up. Well, Kepa probably fired up from the bench, but if Rudiger's playing, it'd be interesting to see how he's playing after the bust up.
Yeah, so I've heard some stuff about this bust up. What? Because apparently he had a bust up with Lampard, which is why he wasn't in the team at the start of this season. So why is he just falling out of everyone? What's going on?
It just seems like a loose cannon, doesn't it? So apparently it was pretty bad, and Tuchel mentioned that in his presser. He said it was pretty bad, but he said they've resolved it now, and there's going to be no further implications of that, which it'll be interesting to see if man to his word and Rudiger does start tonight. But yeah, it didn't look pretty. I mean,
was it a manager bust up?
No, 2 players. Rudiger got told to go in apparently, but on the face of it, Rudiger and Kepa, I don't think there was a fight there, was it? I bet Rudiger was all over him.
Oh, that's who the bust-up was with, Kepa?
Yeah, Rudiger and Kepa.
Right, okay.
I mean, it doesn't seem like a fair fight on paper, does it?
Well, I mean, not a fair fight on paper, like physically, but also in terms of their standing in the squad. Like, you'd think, FPL-wise, you'd think that... So say if it was say if it was Rudiger and Mount who had a bust-up, maybe Tuchel would be like, well, you can't be doing that with one of the other key members of the squad. But like Kepa, will he be that arsed?
Yeah, probably glad that he got done in.
Yeah, it's interesting, as you say. The Chelsea team sheet tonight will hopefully help us know what's going on there.
Yeah, and like if there is another mauling tonight, Porto completely trounce them, then it could be a change. But I don't think one game will change my thinking too much on the wild card.
So let's finish off the housekeeping. It's Friday deadline this week. One of those annoying deadlines. So get your team done Friday. And what else? If you've not seen already, we've got a YouTube channel. Subscribe on there. And if you can if you've got nothing to do, if you can just go through and click like on every single one, and leave a comment saying Callum is a nonce on every single video, that would also be very helpful.
Maybe not that. We'll get us blocked off the platform, but a comment would be nice.
So yeah, should we get into the game week review?
Yeah, let's go for it.
It's you first.
I outscored you. Shock.
Yeah, even with that shite bench boost.
Yeah. So yeah, mighty 4 points on my bench from Kufal, which was brilliant. Other than that, a few highlights. Captain Kane. We talked about Rafinha or Kane, and I did actually have the chip on Rafinha at one point, so that paid off. Other than that, Salah. But a week's a long time. If you asked me before we recorded yesterday, Liverpool play the triple up would have been nailed on, wouldn't it? But back to the old ways. Diaz, clean sheet. Fernandez ticking over 5. Martinez still racking up the save points, but I think I'm going to get rid of him on the clean sheet. Everyone seems to be getting rid of City players on the wild card as well, which is a bit strange for the defence because Diaz has only missed a couple of games. So I'm not sure I'll be getting rid of him when the clean sheet potential is still there.
Well, I mean, not everyone can afford Diaz, Aspi, and Trent and all that, so it's probably budget reasons mainly.
Pinching the cash has come back to pay dividends for myself, hasn't it?
Well, yeah. Is that the end of your team review? We don't want to just hear you going out of money again. Like you do that every podcast.
Well, you mentioned it. You said I'm pinching points. Well, pinching 0.1, whatever.
Well, no, you are. I think you've got some sort of cheat code. You just plugged in 2 million into your team that no one else has. Well, so your rank went up about 1k, didn't it?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it went up from 6k to 5.5. So yeah, but about 700 it went up. So yeah, hope for this wild card will see me into the season running. I mean, I'm very much aiming for 1,000 now, I think, and see where I go.
Yeah, because last week you were sort of being a bit, not very ambitious, just talking about beating last year's rank, but aiming for the top 1k now.
Yeah, I think your motivation has kick-started.
That's what I'm known for, just being a beacon of positivity and just like, those rousing words of motivation.
Must be that. I think I'm feeling good after the Easter bank holiday.
What was I going to say? So yeah, my team is pretty similar to Callum's really, except I think I benched Diaz, which was my mistake. My logic there was I played Gundogan and Foden over Diaz, and I thought Leicester would score, to be honest, given the form that like Iheanacho's been in, Vardy, Maddison being back. Although Maddison only got 20 minutes, I think. Did he get that? He only got a few minutes, I think. So yeah, I just thought if there was going to be a week where City don't keep a clean sheet, it'd be this one after the international break against Leicester, but didn't prove to be. So yeah, I lost out on 5 points there. And yeah, so that meant my score was 59. And yeah, my rank went from 62 to 61k, so 1k rise. So yeah, pretty similar rank rises for both of us, marginal increases. I just wanted to say though, so you tweeted out on the Friday that you were going Rafinha captain, and as soon as I read it, I was like, "There's no way he's going Rafinha captain."
I did say in the tweet I might go Kane last minute, which I did. I transferred Kane in Saturday morning. Well, put him as captain Saturday morning.
You're just playing mind games, I think. Just trying to deceive the loyal Twitter audience that we have. I'm surprised it wasn't right Saturday morning when your team came out.
I mean, it's not as if I said Rafinha 100%. I don't know what you're trolling me here for. To be fair to you, looking at your team, I think you got unlucky with Antonio because he was a beast Monday night. He was brilliant until he got injured. I think if he'd stayed on, he would have got a goal at least because he was running that channel for Lingardinho like no tomorrow.
Yeah, he was. I think did he hit the post or something as well?
Yeah, he was really good.
The player I think I was really unlucky with was Alonso because he hit the post twice in the first half.
Yeah,
and then if either of those had gone in, it could have been a very different game. So yeah, the 1 week punt on Alonso didn't really pay off. So that's probably the reason why I will have Wildcard if I'm not sure about him starting going forwards now that I've got him.
Yeah, and I was delving a bit deeper into Pep Roulette, just to touch on that now. Foden, interestingly, he was in the bottom half of minutes played for City players in the Premier League, but in Champions League, he's played pretty much every minute. I think he's missed like 6 minutes, so he must have got brought off late on in one game. So it's almost as if that's Pep's key to the Champions League this year, and he was brilliant midweek. So it doesn't bode well for your FPL team going forward, but I just found that was interesting.
Yeah, and I guess linked to that, it's doesn't bode well for people who have Sterling, does it? If he's decided his first 11 doesn't necessarily have Sterling in, which is what the Champions League lineup yesterday indicated.
Yes, but to counter that, Sterling might be good for FPL now because he might get the Premier League games. You don't really, if you're playing your wildcard, you don't really want to be playing yourself to Pep Roulette, but it'll be interesting to see the next few games. There'll probably be a pattern of who's playing the Premier League games and who's being saved for the Cup.
So yeah, actually, before I forget, there was something I was going to ask you about. There's been a lot of talk about best captain this week and whatever, and obviously City versus Leeds is an enticing fixture because we've seen what Leeds can crumble against the big teams sometimes if there's an early goal. If you were punting on a City player for this week, who would it be?
I don't even know. The years gone by, it'd be Aguero, wouldn't it? And I think Aguero will play, but he just looks so off the pace at the moment. That I think that injury's just knocked him. Probably Sterling would be the one, just because he's definitely going to play, and he's probably most likely to get a goal.
Well, you can't say definitely going to play, can you? Don't be giving out false promises on the podcast.
But he's not. He didn't play midweek. He's not. Like, what you think he's not going to play?
Well, no, I don't think you can say 100% with Pep, can you?
Before midweek, it would have been Mahrez, but Mahrez played that game. Mahrez has almost forced his way into the first 11 ahead of Sterling. So, yeah, probably Sterling would be the one.
Yeah. You mentioned Jesus a few weeks ago, didn't you, as someone to get for City, and he did score a few goals in that little run. He could be another, because he didn't play last night either, did he?
No, if I was getting a striker in, he would be the one ahead of Aguero. Because I think they'll both play Premier League, or Jesus might get slightly more minutes, but Jesus looks sharper out of the two. I think that no striker is going to be the tried and tested now for the Champions League and Cup, so I think they'll get plenty of minutes in the league.
Yeah, and so what about Gundogan? What do you think of him with Gundogan this weekend? Will he? Because the thing to say with City, the reason that rotation's such a worry is that not only is there these Dortmund games, there's a game 3 days later, isn't there? After the Dortmund game, is that the EFL Cup final, or is that?
Yeah. Next weekend's Tottenham. Yeah.
So yeah, you'd think that for Gundogan and De Bruyne, etc., who played yesterday, they won't be able to play Leeds this weekend, then Dortmund, and then the EFL Cup final all back to back. You think? I don't know.
No, it helps because Gundogan was rested the one before Champions League, so he might play that one, and Kev might be given the game off against Leeds because otherwise Kev will be playing every 3 days for like 3 weeks. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's
just bring Edison in and forget about it.
It's a fool's errand, really, isn't it, or whatever the phrase is, to try and predict what's going to happen with the City team. But something to think about, all those games in a row. I think that's probably, you were saying, why do people not have City players on Wildcard and stuff? That's probably another big reason. Just
I still think Diaz is pretty much bulletproof because purely for the reason that if he doesn't play him in the Premier League and Laporte and Stones play, and we all know how croaky them two are together, and if they start conceding goals in the Premier League, it almost might leak into the Champions League and stuff and the other comps. So I still think Pep will want to keep those clean sheets up just so the bad habits don't leak into the Champions League. So I still think Diaz is going to play pretty much every game. I'll be very surprised if he didn't.
Interesting. Okay. Any other talking points from the weekend?
Well, the one mentioned in the intro was Liverpool looked absolutely brilliant, and then last night pretty much Trent proved G. Nev and Southgate right. He got tore apart, and then he was at fault for passing to the Madrid player as well. So I've still got triple Liverpool just because of that Arsenal performance. And maybe if they go out of the Champions League, it might galvanise them a bit in the Premier League, but who knows? It's funny. Liverpool's been like that all season, haven't they? One week we're like the back, and then next week it's like, well, not even next week now. It's 3 days. It's a conundrum.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that Carragher and Neville debate. Like, I'd recommend that if you've not seen it. It'll be on the Sky Sports YouTube channel. But yeah, Carragher was basically throwing Neville off a cliff for just giving some reasons why Trent might not be solid enough at right back against certain opposition. And then a day or so later, like
it's almost as if Trent watched that and had it in his head when he was playing that game.
Well, no, I was going to say it's almost as if Zidane watched it and was like, "Hang on," because like all the play was down that side, wasn't it? Like, so yeah, it was a clear tactic, like Cruz pinging in balls down that channel behind Trent. So
it'll be interesting to see what happens at Euros. I don't think he'll play now. He won't start anyway. But yeah, making the squad will be interesting.
Well, what do you think about the budget option in Phillips 4.0? What's there for Liverpool?
I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Like, I watched Phillips earlier in the season. I kind of joked with my mate saying he's the worst defender ever to play in the Premier League. And then this week there was some talk amongst like Liverpool fans, and I saw a Sky Sports article saying he's become a bit of a cult hero and he's become really good. And I was not buying that at all. I think he's terrible. And I think Fabinho playing in that holding midfield has kind of plugged the gaps a bit and made him look a bit better. But I think
Dyson. You mean Dyson? He's called Dyson, right?
Who, Fabinho?
Yeah, that's
Hoover. All right.
Yeah, because apparently he hoovers up everything before it gets to the back four.
I mean,
that's
with the fixtures,
that's Klopp's. I didn't make that up, just to clarify.
Right. With the fixtures that Liverpool have left, then as an FPL option, he's probably good at 4 million. But yeah, in terms of a football player, I don't think he's very good.
Yeah, well, yeah,
but I suppose we're talking about FPL, aren't we? So yeah, potentially.
That is what the podcast is about. Yeah, well done.
No, but I just wanted to get across that I don't like him as a footballer.
You just don't like him. Okay, that's interesting.
He's just not very good.
What was I going to say? It's just because we have to bear in mind that not everyone has 107 million team value like you. So if people do want Diaz and the secure Chelsea defensive option, which is ASP, a sacrifice kind of has to be made somewhere from the template, which is well, yeah, we can touch more on that when we go through the wildcard draft.
Yeah. Would you be playing him? And it almost blocks the free Liverpool. Like, would you be starting for the? We'll talk about it.
Yeah. Anything else? What else was there from the weekend? I guess. Oh yeah. So the West Ham game. Do you remember last week we were talking about West Ham Arsenal? And I was like, well, that was just a freak game. That West Ham won't have a free before the end of another free before the end of the season. And then I'm watching that game and it gets to 3-2 and I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be 3-3 again. But thankfully they held on this time. But
Lingard, that first half, wow. Yeah, brilliant. He's probably the most exciting Premier League player to watch at the moment. I don't pain you to say that as a United fan, probably. But the first half hour, I was watching it. I was like, every time he got the ball, I was like, fucking. And I was like, where's this football player been? Like forever. He was quality. That goal was brilliant.
Yeah, it's a bit like. Did you ever play Need for Speed on PlayStation back in the day? It's a bit like now when he runs, it's like he's got that NOS activated. Like he just seems a bit. It just seems like he can. Other players just look slow, like slower than they normally would when he runs at them. I don't know. It's weird. It's like other players aren't expecting him to be doing what he's doing either. And then
because he's going, they were saying it's like bad Wolves defending, but you got to give credit to the guy. He's dribbling like you're saying. He was running at full belt. It's like kind of brilliant.
So while we're on Lingard, I was looking at some stats earlier, and because the goals he's scoring are kind of like he's running at people, taking people on, shooting from outside the box. They're not like tapping goals, are they? They're not.
No.
So in terms of like XG and stuff, he's not actually a good option based on the stats. He's actually one of the. I think I saw he's the most overperforming midfielder at the moment. Does that have any factor in your thinking, or do you think just by the eye test, like, because we're not the most statty people, we tend to include what we think when we watch the games as well. But I was just wondering if those stats, what they meant for you.
I mean, this year I've actually paid more close attention to stats and stuff, because I do think there is credit in stats and basing your FPL team around them. But sometimes, like say, the eye test and stuff, like you just watch him now and he's playing unbelievable out of his skin. And sometimes you kind of just got to go with it. I mean, the start of the season, was it Kane and Son? Like they were doing the exact same numbers wise and XG and stuff. And if you listen to the stats and you were like, well, they're not going to keep this up. And then they just, first 4 or 5 games, they were assisting each other for fun, weren't they, scoring with every shot? So I think you've got to take it with a pinch of salt sometimes, and you kind of got to watch football games and use your eye and kind of think, yeah, he's playing unbelievable. But there is merit in stats, don't get me wrong. But I think at the moment, the way he's playing, you've got to bring him in a wild card, surely.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because like midfield's kind of where it's at the moment, isn't it? There is competition there.
The thing that benefits him is probably that West Ham team now. Like he's only been there a short time, but it's almost built around him. Like he is the guy. Like Antonio, you saw for his first goal, he almost did like an NFL wide receiver run and took everyone out of play. Like that team is pretty much built around him now. I know Rice is injured for a while, but Soucek, Rice, Noble in there, and then the wingers working hard, Bowen and. Well, they played 5 at the back, actually, didn't they, on Monday, which is even more suited to him because he kind of free roam. So I think that team's just set up perfect for him. And if West Ham score, he's likely to be involved in some way.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So before we get into the wildcard chat, for people who've not already used the wildcard, who have already used the wildcard, the reason that most people who still have it thinking about using it this week is the fixture swings, isn't it? So for people who maybe only have 1 or 2 free transfers to use this week, like what would you be? Like for me, it's probably if you've got 3 leads, you probably want to come off 3 leads now, don't you? That'd probably be where I'd be focusing my attention.
Yeah, and in terms of players to bring in, Yotta's probably number 1, I'd say.
Or one of the Leicester boys.
Yeah, he and Nacho Vardy,
because yeah,
but
so
the
reason we say Leeds is that now the next 3 are City, Liverpool, United. So if you've got 3 of them, especially, like you don't really want 3 leads for those 3 fixtures.
No, absolutely not. And then you'll probably keep. If I was to keep one, I'd probably keep Rafinha. I'd probably be tempted to bring out Bamford just because Rafinha, I think you've got more potential there. He's playing a lot better, isn't he? Bamford didn't have a great game against Sheffield United. I think he came off, whereas Rafinha still looked like the best player on the pitch at times. Well, most of the game.
So 64 minutes for Bamford in that game. So
yeah, he's going through a dry spell, which is only natural. Like he's not Lewandowski or Ronaldo or Messi. He's gonna go ups and downs throughout the season. So yeah, with them fixtures and his downturn in form, he's probably the one that I'd bring out. The only problem is there's not many strikers firing at the moment. Like the only one was Iheanacho, but he didn't have a great game against City. And I know it's City, but with Maddison and Barnes coming back, it only takes him to have another couple poorish games and he'll be soon out of the team. So yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, fair play. So with what you mentioned there, is that why you've done 3-5-2 for your draft?
Yeah, I almost wish that Greenwood was a forward on it because he's probably the one now who's starting to emerge. I know we've got Spurs next, but he's looked really good the last 2 games. It's kind of a shame that he's a midfielder because it kind of takes away the midfield spot. But yeah, in terms of a striker, Antonio was the one that I wanted, but them flaky hamstrings, who knows if he's going to turn up at the weekend.
Yeah, I think Antonio's just... I wouldn't be having them on a wildcard draft now. Even if Moyes says he might be fit, I think it's just worth avoiding because it's just been too much of a recurring pattern throughout the season, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we'll get into your wildcard then. So if you just want to like intro it so that it starts well, because we're going to clip it, aren't we, for the Twitter? So
yeah, we'll probably clip it into 4 sections.
4 sections.
You get 2 minutes 30 uploads on Twitter, so
right, okay.
We're not all going to talk about well unless I can ramp through, and then be like, right, I'm off. I think it'd be beneficial to like talk about the other options as well.
All right, okay, yeah, cool. I'll let you get started.
Are you going to chip in with who you're potentially going to bring in, or?
Yeah, I'll chip in as and when if you start chatting shit or something.
So goalkeeper was probably the trickiest one, just because when you play wildcard this late, it's almost like they're going to be the set and forget. And actually narrowed it down to Forster and Mendy or Leno or Martinez in the end, because I think Leno and Martinez fixtures intertwined. So it was either them two or plunging with Mendy and then Forster the odd game. I think he's only got 2 good fixtures between now and the end of the season. I actually went for that, despite the fixture at the West Brom game at the weekend. I still think Mendy's the standout keeper option if you're playing your wild card now.
Yeah, I think those two combine to be quite a bit cheaper than Leno and Martinez as well, don't they? So yeah, I'm not going to argue on that. That's
in defence. This is where you're probably going to hate me for the extra team value. At the moment, I've got Aspilicueta, Diaz, Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, and Rob Holding, who looks like he's now going to play, isn't he, with David Luiz? You think he had a knee operation, so Holding's almost like the 5th defender if he needs to be. But yeah, I think them 4, you're tapping into, I won't say United, but the top 3 defenses. Well, Liverpool actually, the top 2 defenses, and then probably the 2 most exciting attacking fullbacks in Alexander-Arnold and Shaw in terms of FPL.
Yeah, so yeah, obviously that is annoying that you can afford all that with the rest of the players you've got. So yeah, what I'd say to people is, if you don't have 107 million like Callum, you could maybe look at having someone cheaper other than Shaw if he's going to be on the bench most weeks, or the obvious downgrade is Phillips instead of Alexander-Arnold if you want that bargain basement route into the Liverpool defence. So yeah, Aspilicueta definitely looks the best option at Chelsea, especially after that Rudiger bust up. And you've said why you want Diaz earlier on. So yeah.
Yeah, my only concern about Aspilicueta would be if Chelsea start to progress in the Champions League, so they get through to the semis, and then they've already sealed top 4, but it looks like they're now going to have to start winning a few games in the Premier League. So I think they'll still play the best team.
And then, yeah, just one quick thing to mention on City is they blanked, don't they, in 33. So just factor that in with your team planning if you're including a City player in your wildcard.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Spurs, Tottenham, Spurs, Southampton, Fulham, and City. Because I actually looked at Lloris Forster at one point, but yeah, 33 would have been a write-off. Midfield, I actually think probably the easiest one to pick. So Fernandes, Jota, Salah, Son, Lingard, just because the City's midfielders we've talked about, I just wouldn't know who to get. And then Son, you want for the 32 double game week. Jota, probably now emerging, probably the best value player in the game. We know how good he was early on in the season, and he came off to score twice at the weekend, so you'd fancy him to keep up. And then I've had Salah all season. I don't think I'll change. Fernandes, yeah, and we talked about Lingard already.
So yeah, because this will be a standalone clip, won't it? We'll just quickly say on Lingard that yeah, you kind of said you're favouring how he looks in games, like compared to his stats and his XG and whatnot. But would Neto or someone like that like compete for that position for you? Like, 'cause it saves a few million, that, doesn't it? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, we talked before the podcast, didn't we, about Neto, and I'm just a bit reluctant to get on anyone from Wolves at the moment. I know Neto looked quite good on Monday. He missed a glorious chance actually that would have gotten a goal, but I'm just a bit reluctant to tap into that Wolves team just for the way they're playing. I know they've got great fixtures now on paper, and I think before the West Ham game, I probably would have got a defender in at the minimum. Everyone was drafting beforehand that game, probably had Cody in or someone like that. But I just don't think they could be trusted. No games are gimme them for them at the way they're playing at the moment. So yeah, probably stay clear from Neto. I mean, yeah, probably won't go near him.
I mean, wouldn't go near him is harsh. I think he's a definite option still with the fixtures. Because yeah, so I was just going to say for people who do, because not everyone. There are some managers who like religiously favour fixtures over form, and like so if you are that kind of manager, you might prefer Neto over Lingard. It's just what I'd throw in.
If you could get the power four, Fernandes, Jota, Salah, and Son, and you needed someone cheaper to kind of get that in, I'd probably say Smith Rowe is probably the option, strong option at 4.2, because I was reading stat before with Saka and Smith Rowe in the team, Arsenal's win percentage goes significantly up, and I know he's been injured, but he's not out for too long, so he'll probably want to go to 4.2. He's a great enabler, isn't he, at that price?
Fair play. Right, and then the strikers.
I mean, Kane picks for himself. If you're playing a wildcard and not playing Kane, you're a maverick at the very least. Iheanacho, who this time last week I would have been very, very sweet on after his run of, was it 6 goals in 5 games, something? But we talked just in an early segment about he might now, he's probably 1 or 2 bad games away from being outside. I know he came off against City, which is no discredit to him, but if he doesn't play well against West Ham and then the game after, then with Maddison and Barnes coming back, he might be outside, but I think he's worth the gamble at 5.8. He's earned to play that West Ham game at the very least. I'd be very surprised if he didn't play that. It'd be harsh. So yeah, probably still would go Iheanacho. The only alternative would be Vardy, but he's 5 million more, so you'd have to sacrifice some money elsewhere. And then I've got, you'll be loving it, I finally ran out of money. I've got Keenan Davis as the other forward. So I haven't got a complete super team. There is money somewhere. There is fodder players somewhere. We've talked all season about the forwards not being too great. I'd rather invest in the midfield. So that's the reason I've gone for that.
Gosh, we best put a plea into Bernardo's. Callum can't afford a premium player for the third option on his bench. What has the world come to?
The only option, I think, a bit more expensive was Vidra, who's played last few games for Burnley, but I'd have to sacrifice money elsewhere. And am I really that arsed about getting 0.6 back of my team to get Matej Vidra in? Probably not. But I've seen a lot of drafts with Vidra in, so he probably, if I had a bit of more money, he'd be the one. I wouldn't be having Keenan Davis, but I've run out of money.
Okay. So yeah, just to wrap up this section, like, is there anything you've got booked it? Like, where would you go, say, if Iheanacho, gets hauled off early again in this game? Like, what would you do with that for next week? Would you just see it out until after the double, or would you address that straight away?
No, I'm set now in my head that I'm going to see it through to the end of so I won't play transfer next week, see what happens after Spurs' double, because I'm likely to get Son out anyway. And then, yeah, address it from there. If we need to make 2 transfers, do it. But I think if you're playing your wild card, I think it was FPL General podcast I was listening to, and he played Bamford, and in his head, he only had him in for 1 game, and that was it. And he said if he could do it again, he wouldn't do the same move. He said, if you're playing your wild card, you should not be playing players for 1 week, because you already set yourself up for downfall. If you're already having to do a transfer and then something else happens and stuff. So he said just play it as if you're bringing in a player normally, which I thought is quite an interesting take. And obviously he a guy who well respected in the community, if he's saying he'd wish he'd done that, then yeah. So I wouldn't be playing a wild card with a 1 week punt. I'd be looking to at least get that team 2 weeks and then make some transfers from there.
Yeah, I sort of broadly agree with the logic. I think what I'd say though is if Bamford had scored 3 against Sheffield, it doesn't look
He
as bad.
would have a different viewpoint, wouldn't he? Yeah, it's easy to take that viewpoint.
So it's you have to it's a risk, but you have to. There's it could potentially go right as well. That's the other thing. The other way of looking at it is that you talk about you booking yourself in for a transfer, like people who are wildcarding now compared to the people who don't have the wildcard. You're getting in all the players like Jota, Lingard, etc. Those people are going to be, it's going to take them 2 or 3 weeks to get, the new template or whatever that this wildcard draft represents. So you're booking in a transfer if you do it like that. But people who aren't on wildcard have got 2 or 3 things to catch up on, So that's the other thing to factor in.
Yeah. So say if you do play a wildcard this week, is there anyone would you bring someone in for a 1 week punt or you'd get straight out in 32?
Well, that's kind of why at the start I was asking you about City, because I think we'll talk about captaincy options soon. But yeah, like having a player in that game captained against Leeds, it does look enticing. So what you could do with Son's fixture this week against United, you could have Sterling instead of Son or something like that, and then as a 1 week thing, and then bring Son in next week. And you're missing Son's game against United.
The only problem is if you get another injury or something, but
exactly.
On paper it doesn't sound. You just, the only negative is, like I say, if you get 1 or 2 injuries, then before you know it, you're playing a -8. But it's the risk you got to take.
Yeah, that's the risk, isn't it? So with this wild card, then who are your next few captains?
This week is probably Salah at home to Aston Villa, because Kane's the only obvious one, but he's got United. 32 is Kane. They got a double. 33 is probably Salah again at home to Newcastle. So it's probably a theme. It's either going to be Salah or Kane, which kind of makes the week after that, Kane at home to Sheffield United. So probably Kane and Salah now up until about 34, 35, which I didn't actually think about Bruno factor, actually. I've kind of just got him in because I've had so much value built up in him. He's another player I've had since the start, and I've got, I think it's 1 million built up in him. So I'm kind of reluctant to get rid of him, to be honest, especially when his ownership is so high.
That reminds me of something I wanted to say, actually. So there'd been some calls in previous questions for the return of Mindy's top tip, and I've got a Mindy's top tip, actually. I mean, the way I look at it is, though, the top tips come scattered throughout the whole podcast. It's hard to just keep them saved to the end. But yeah, I think at this point of the season, motivation and where that comes from is really important. So players going for the golden boot, for example, so Salah, Kane, Fernandes, you want them in because not only do they want to do well anyway, but we've seen in previous seasons what the golden boot means to Kane. Like there was a season where he scored like 7 goals in the last 5 games or something to get the golden boot. And he was claiming goals and saying that, he swears. Did he swear on his family member's life or something as well? Like,
it was something mental.
So I think those things, like players competing to get in the England squad, like e.g. Lingard, factor that into your thinking. Like it's a bit different at the end of the season, isn't it? Because some teams haven't got much to play for. They're on the beach. Like we saw at the end of last season, Crystal Palace, as soon as they were safe, so I don't think they won a game after that, or didn't win many. So just bear like the circumstances around what might be motivating teams and players, like West Ham going for the Champions League, stuff like that. There's a few intangibles that you have to factor in come this part of the season. Yeah,
the rotation factor as well. I know Salah missed a few games early in the season, but like you say, going for Golden Boot, especially getting knocked out of the Champions League, he's going to be playing every game, isn't he? And Bruno's definitely going to be playing every game because didn't Ollie rest him for the FA Cup game, which United went out? So I don't think he'll be getting rested again anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly. So that's that's that really, I think. Is there anything else we need to go through? Oh, we were going to mention double game week 35 quickly.
Yeah, do you want to explain the Matrix or?
I'm not explaining the Matrix. What else? What's the best way of talking about this? So you might have seen in the news that there's been talk about getting fans in the stadiums for the last couple of game weeks, so that every team can have a home game in front of fans. And the upheaval from that and the way the schedule will have to be moved might mean that there's a double game week 35. So the expert in the FPL world on all of this is Ben Krellin at Ben Krellin on Twitter. You'll see him retweeted on our feed if you want to go and look him up. But yeah, if you've still got the wild card, I don't know, for some people that might make them think twice. Maybe they'll want to use the wild card in double game week 30, in a big double game week in 35 if that happens. So I just thought it was worth mentioning. But we don't really have we can't really give clear guidance on that at the moment, isn't it? It's a bit up in the air.
Yeah, depends on the FA Cup final as well. Yeah, just on that though, it's very late to be playing a wild card in 4 games. Are you getting the real value from it? But I suppose if you get an 11 double game weekers, then potentially so.
So yeah, it's just something to mention. That was the only reason I didn't activate at the start of this week like you did. I was just thinking, just in case it gets announced in the week, and yeah. But I probably am going to play my wild card too, and shock it.
All right, you've just took all the tips. You picking the same team, but with about 10 million less.
Yeah, I mean, all those crazy differentials you've got that you've put loads of time and effort into finding, I might have a few similar ones. Yeah.
Don't be stealing Kieran Davis, lad.
There's probably a fitting note to end, I think.
Yeah. Good luck for the game week. We'll be back with the usual schedule next week. We just thought everyone's talking about a wild card, so we'll go through ours.
Yeah, we probably should have said if you're not on Wildcard, don't listen to this podcast right at the start. But, oh well.
You've got this far.
Yeah. So yeah, see you next week, and don't forget the early deadline. All right.
Yeah.
See you on the next one.
See you on the other side.